Iranian or not, but if you talk to the Kurdish, I haven't if you guys go and talk with Iranians who are Kurdish Iranians, many of them just support Reza Shah, and many of them want to be in a community with all Iranians, and just a small portion of these people want separation, which are very like isolated from Iranian society. I'm not claiming any percentage, and you cannot also claim any percentage about Iranian people because we don't have any percentage. Then there is no referendum there is no any percentage of people you can measure or I can measure. I don't understand. I didn't say 1% of the population. I said what you say. It's not even the closeness of 1%. That is 1% population.
Let's ask you one question. We both have one problem, and that's IRGC. If IRGC,
are you from Iran or Syria or
I'm from Eastern occupied by Iran, and if you ask me for the cities,
okay?
Okay. So now I'm just asking one question.
May you check with me?
بله میتونیم با هم فارسی هم صحبت بکنیم بفرمایید خدمتتون هستم.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Are you okay with this, Aida? No, I'm not okay with this.
Sorry, Dave, I don't understand your question.
No, are you satisfied with his policy? Are you satisfied with his policy? It's not his language.
Yes, I think he can speak Farsi. Actually, there was another more no, let me just say something. There was another club for Iranians. There were supporters of Reza Shah, and there was another guy like him joined the community, and all he was talking was a lot of nonsense. That how do I know Reza Shah is the chosen one by Iranian people, but there's no referendum yet, and Reza Shah has released a notebook for you that he has explained all his plans for the temporary period after the fall of IRGC, and this guy didn't even, I'm not saying I'm saying another Kurdish separator. That guy even didn't hadn't you want the our border of Iran. You want to separate the land of Iranians. You want to separate one part of that because you are claiming that it's
1 minute. You said Reza Shah, but it was in UK. There was a campaign that Reza Shah himself and people endorsed him. something coexistent with people that they want to wipe you out. And we are with people that they don't want to give a minimum rights to Kurdish people, like even studying with your own language, like a self-determination.
So Reza Shah has also in the notebook, Reza Shah has cited and in the in 12 different ethnies they study their own dialect and their own language. So after Reza Shah is the leader, the Kurdish people practice Kurdish language and the Turkish people will practice Turkish and the Islamic people will practice Iraqi.
Let's keep just give me a quick second with on this thing you say, many Jewish people don't have the historical background to understand you. Okay?
35 years.
I give. Look, over the last few months, occasionally we have Kurdish people, they come, and then I also see that some of the Jewish people respond to them. So what you say that nobody cares is not correct. Okay? The reason why we care and we want to understand, because we want to figure out a very challenging problem that the Kurdish people during World War I, they will promise something and they will abandon, they will betray, right? And this was like close to 100 years ago. Now we want to slowly figure out, but the problem is the Gaza problem is dominating the whole entire discussion. Okay, the Gaza problem is your enemy. The people who
IRGC is our enemy. IRGC is Kosovo's enemy. IRGC wants to control and IDA in the same time.
let me explain. IRGC is the mother of Pentagon, right? The proxy like
Sit up in there and say, oh, I just posted a picture. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And Edmund was live streaming that room from your room into the other fucking room where people heard you. Oh, speaking of which, he's in the audience. Here he is. Future Congressman Kitover.
Don Kitover, the Wait, hold on. The Chicago Tribune told me they would love to receive all the recordings I have of you.
Oh, when you actually called him?
Yeah, hitting gongs and, hypnotizing people. I don't think they want to hypnotize congressmen.
Harassing black men.
Yeah. And Rich brought up a good point. I know you don't like Rich Adams, but in the state of Illinois, anyone that donates to a campaign and it reaches $5,000, that politician has to submit a list of names and addresses of everyone that donated, and it then becomes public. They're in the hood for
Oh yeah, Dr. Adams.
I'm here talking.
Just let you know the ADL has listed America First as a hate group or something like that.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I ain't kidding you, man. Yeah.
John, you gotta get out.
Sorry, y'all.
Yes.
Sorry, y'all. I had to sit down and take one kid.
Which is a reason, this is another reason why this nigga should not be a congressman. He has 35 phones that he streams from all day in his boxes with his big swollen balls that need to be released, stuffed up in some boxer briefs.
Didn't Nicholas say that, John has some cake?
I do have the picture Jesse was talking about in my PTR. I like his balls personally. I think they're nice set balls.
I think they're swollen.
Did you ever hear the Lord of God? Have you guys seen his balls?
Shy likes
He
to
opens his legs on his Instagram Live, which is reason number 7 why he shouldn't be a congressman, because he opened his legs. And when Jasmine Crockett does it, they all have something to say. Well, I'm against it.
Wait, so you're basically confirming that he's a faggot, like I've been saying.
I don't know.
Opening legs like a grown man opening legs on camera is a homosexual.
So, Congressman, or theoretically, you're not a congressman yet, right?
Correct. Candidate Congressman John Kitover in the 16th District of Illinois going against Darren, the rhino vaccinologist, super decorator, the hood.
Okay, I thought you were going for a position in Texas.
No, 16th District of Illinois.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize for that. I misheard on that. Okay, very good. We are glad that you showed up. Are you on the ballot yet?
No, we won't know until October 27th whether or not we get the required number of signatures.
Okay, and so as I understand it, you're able to raise money before you're on the ballot. Is that correct?
Correct. We have an FEC filing disclosure, we have a campaign financial disclosure, we have a bank account, an EIN, a bank letter. We're fully set up to accept your donation right now if any of you should elect or decide after this conversation to donate to my campaign.
Good. All right. Well, that's very good. Tell me who Adrian Dittman is.
That is Elon Musk's pen name burner on X. But X and look up Adrian Dittman with 2 T's, 2 N's. That is 100% Elon Musk, and I have been recording him for almost a whole year on X in unrecorded spaces and publishing him to YouTube. Elon Musk most definitely knows about John Kitover and the campaign to Congress.
Are you telling me that Elon Musk is a supporter of yours?
No, he's most definitely not a supporter of this campaign. He has blocked almost all of my X accounts.
I see. Okay. Well, that's useful. You're clearing up a lot of information. I appreciate your honesty. Tell me this. What do you think of Donald Trump's recent adventure with Vladimir Putin in Alaska?
Well, I wouldn't call it an adventure. I would call it a meeting of the minds, and hopefully there's going to be more peace and de-escalation, and less violence, and more bombing, and less shooting, and so we have more peace on here. And I hope it's a good thing for the world, America, for Russia, for Ukraine.
Do you have any children?
No, I have no kids. I'm married. I'm single, and I'm ready to mingle, ladies.
Okay. So someday maybe you'll be a father, and you'll see pinned to the top of this room a story about the children that Vladimir Putin abducted in his war crime. And I'm just wondering, as a potential congressman, how you feel about the President of the United States bowing and scraping to a war criminal.
You think Donald Trump was bowing and scraping to Vladimir Putin?
He rolled out the red carpet to a war criminal. Do you agree, disagree with that?
Well, I think that, being a green bean in a social audio chat app and calling Vladimir Putin a war criminal and our great American president as somebody who's bowing, kowtowing, scraping to a war criminal could be a mischaracterization. I don't think you're accurate in your analysis.
Interesting. I'm not sure what the term green bean means. Would you like to define that?
Yeah, you are the super moderator, so the little green dot with the black star in the center. You're the green bean.
I see. Okay.
to pass a fair and budget balanced act where we can only collect, if we collect $5 trillion in taxes, we can only spend $5 trillion. We can't keep doing borrowing and spending.
Do you understand that the Fed has more to do, has a lot more things that it's doing than controlling our federal deficits?
Oh, it's Congress which is controlling our federal deficits. The Fed is merely helping us kick the can down the road.
Okay, good, we agree on that. What do you think would actually happen to our economy if we blew up, no, if we, I'm sorry, I want to use your terms, if we terminated the Federal Reserve?
I think you would see a lot of stocks completely implode because it would not be business as usual. If we cut Medicare and Medicaid by 1.8 billion and the National Defense Authorization Act by 200 billion, a lot of defense and medical health industrial complex corporations would implode, wiping out a lot of savings and investment. However, that's just borrowing and spending.
So you're okay with the kind of implosion that it would cause, and you, I'm putting words in your mouth and I'm inviting you to correct me if I get it wrong. You think that essentially tearing the Fed system down and starting over again is better than trying to improve it incrementally. Is that fair?
Correct. If we cut Medicare and Medicaid by 1.8 trillion a year, that would implode many corporations, and we could start over and have an actual economy, not this artificial borrow spend economy.
Okay. I'm curious what you think of Ron Vera.
I'm sorry, I don't know who was going.
Okay. Peter Navarro's financial advisor or advisor, Ron Vera. It's okay. Yeah, go ahead and look him up. It may have been a question that you weren't prepared for, and I appreciate your honesty. It's not the answer I expected, and that's okay.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Sure, you can.
So, if you want to like get rid of the Fed, right? So, John F. Kennedy had this idea about issuing like certificates, right? So, if you actually have an idea about getting rid of the Fed, then what is the policy with regards to issuing money?
It would be issued by the Treasury, and the debt will be still to the American people. However, it won't be a debt to the Federal Reserve.
And so, how long, because you have money that's in the system, right? You have money that's, even though we don't all carry cash, you have money in people's pockets, right? So, what is actually the transition process? Is more, and you can say you don't know because you haven't hired, like, you don't have those people on your team yet. I'm just curious as to how functionally, how do you see this happening here?
Sure, I think the U.S. Congress should end the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, defund the Federal Reserve. That would mean every Federal Reserve employee would get a payout. They would all be unemployed, let's say by October 1st. And then if the U.S. government wants to borrow money, it would borrow it from the Treasury, not from the Federal Reserve.
Yeah,
What would happen to interest rates?
that's what I was.
The Treasury would set the interest rate, but I think that we would open up more competitive bidding to alternative interest rate providers or banks that would not operate off of the federally set rate. There would be an open marketplace for rates and lenders, as there already is. to borrow $2 trillion a year, but only collect $5 trillion a year is basically a bad bargain fake. The big beautiful bill transfers $4.2 trillion off of the future tax liabilities of corporations like Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, and gives it to we the people. It's simply a tax liability transfer from Fortune 500 to the American people.
Girl, do you understand that?
Not really, I really don't.
It's the first time I've heard such a
Yeah,
claim.
I looked it up. This is what the query was that I asked Brock. I said, what are the Fortune 500 corporations that benefit the most from the Big Beautiful Bill? He spit out 25 Fortune 500 and how much they anticipate the Big Beautiful Bill gives them in tax credits.
Yeah, no, so that part, again, I guess I'm trying to figure out, what does that have to do with getting rid of the Fed? And you know, Alan's question about interest rates, are you thinking about, you know, like we have treasury securities, right? So the Fed rate tends to, you know, move up and down with the bond. So I'm trying to understand, like, what, you get rid of the Fed, right? You said something about tackling interest rates, but there's something, I guess I hear what you're saying. I understand Rob gave you an answer, but I don't.
Well, I'm telling you that we're $37 trillion in national debt. We have $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. We need consolidation. The Federal Reserve is losing $100 billion a year. Their annual budget is $60 billion. We need consolidation. In a bankruptcy, you consolidate. You run the ship like a business. The federal government is not being run like a business. Norway, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, United Arab Emirates run at a profit. The United States of America is spending $2 trillion a year that it does not have. We need to run this like a business, or we will destroy this business.
How many times did Donald Trump declare bankruptcy?
I'm sure he has launched many bankruptcies, dozens probably. You don't even know
At
about.
least 7. He has declared at least 7 bankruptcies. Now, if you had money in one of his businesses and you went bankrupt, what happens to your money?
First of all, let me correct your title. The name is spelled Kitover, not Kitover. Thank you very little. Correct the title.
Spell it. How should it be spelled?
It's in my title, in my profile, Kitover, K-I-T-Over.
I see a T instead of a D. Okay. Well, I was trying to make a little bit of a joke. Does it disturb you that many people on this app think your candidacy is a joke?
No, that doesn't discourage me. That actually gives me more enthusiasm for the campaign, so I can help bring you guys back up to reality, which is $37 trillion in debt. Thomas Massey uses the Treasury.gov API in his little lapel pin. You can look up Thomas Massey. He's one of the only Congress people who will tell you about the fiscal crisis. We are entering into a state period of hyperinflation. By 2050, we'll be $50 trillion in debt, and we'll be paying $4 trillion a year in annual interest. If you want to live in the Weimar Republic like it's 1920, we keep borrowing and we keep spending. That's what we're going to do to our society.
Yossi, you were going to say, go ahead, Yossi.
No, that's it just made me laugh because of, you know, the whole sarcasm point that we tried to make with the title.
Okay, well,
That's
okay. So all of this idea that you want to do away with the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and I apologize, I shouldn't have said blow it up, but that's essentially what you mean, defund it, get rid of it. So, you know, maybe we're talking about hyperbole here, but you would like to get rid of the Federal Reserve. You would like banks to have no government source to borrow funds from to stabilize the system. And you would like to do away with the FDIC. Have I heard you right so far?
Correct. I think Wells Fargo, I think Bank of America, and JP Morgan Chase are more than capable of running the financial system without the Federal Reserve and taxpayer funding to do it.
Got it. So you want to put this in the hands of private institutions, basically.
The Federal Reserve is already a private institution, sir.
Yeah, but they don't trade on the market. You can't buy Federal Reserve stock.
You can say, yeah, but it's still a private institution, sir.
It's a private institution in the sense that it is run for the benefit of the U.S. citizens. It is not run for profit.
It's being run at a loss. And as I said before, as a congressman, I'm asking for consolidation. We are in a period of great austerity and bankruptcy. We are 37 trillion in debt, 100 trillion in unfunded liabilities in debt. If we don't consolidate and if we keep borrowing and spending, you're living in clown world Zimbabwe by 2050.
Well, first of all, you're a potential congressman. You're not currently a congressman. Secondly, you are welcome to come on Tuesday night. We will see that you are not blocked. When my purpose in the room on Tuesday night is to discuss what people can live without. What federal services can people live without? I'm not opposed to your idea of getting federal deficits. But I think the person you have chosen to do it is a terrible representative. And you have said that somehow this big beautiful bill transferred liability from, I don't even understand your point, so I would really like to understand it, just so that I could even restate it.
Sure, the big beautiful bill gives a 10-year period for 4.2 trillion in tax credits, and the top 500 corporations are Amazon, Apple, Google, Coca-Cola, etc., J&J, and it's $5 trillion over 10 years, so it comes out to be about $500 billion a year in tax credits. That means we're going to still borrow $2 trillion. That means Amazon, Google, Microsoft aren't paying down our debt. They're just transferring that debt to the taxpayers, to the citizens of America.
Oh, I agree with you. I actually agree with that. So you're not for the tax credits that Amazon and Google.
No, I want to pay down the debt.
Well, why don't you come out and say you're not for the tax credits so that we can understand you?
I'm trying to infer that it's not a fair deal. It's not a good bargain for we the people. And as a congressperson, I would have voted against the big beautiful bill. Instead, Darren LaHood, who's been in office for 10 years, who I'm running against, he's created $20 trillion in debt in 10 years because we create $2 trillion plus a year in debt. Our government borrows $2 trillion a year that we do not have. We are spending money like a drunken pirate ship.
I agree with you that we're spending money like a drunken pirate ship. I appreciate you staying in this dialogue. And I would also point out that you have done a very poor job of representing what actually is a credible view. And maybe there's something to what you're saying, but I don't think you've got the courage to go out there and say, these tax credits transfer the debt to you, the common citizen. Because you don't say it that way. You say it in such a convoluted way that most people don't understand it. I like to think I'm relatively right and that I listened pretty carefully, but it took me 5 minutes to get to your point here. And your point, if I understand it, and I think I do now, is that the tax credits that were given to these major corporations transfers the debt to the average citizen.
Correct. So
I'd still want to know what happens if we have a monetary policy change. What happens to the money that's already out of the system?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Good. Right.
yeah, I mean, if you want literal physical monetary change, we would actually swipe out the currency and switch it with a U.S. Treasury gold and silver backed certificate, fiat, as opposed to the Federal Reserve, in God we trust, but we owe the Federal Reserve fake paper greenbacks that the whole world is addicted to. The U.S. will be issuing a new federal currency in the name of the United States Treasury, not in the name of the United States Federal Reserve.
And so all of the countries that are currently sitting on our current currency, that currency is now worthless to them. And if you're talking about exchanging it, like what is the exchange rate? Is it a 1-for-1? One of these new dollars for one of the old dollars? And again, you may not have the answers because you haven't gone into this yet. I just think I think this is more complicated than you're kind of intimating it to be, and I don't think it's as clean as you're thinking it is.
There's enough golden for bucks.
There's a lot of complexities to this, but having 37 trillion in debt and 100 trillion in unfunded liabilities is a huge catastrophe, and we can't let Congress keep passing HR acts and omnibuses to get the Federal Reserve to print up $1 trillion tranches for us. We are addicted like a heroin addict to debt. We have to stop stop borrowing and we have to stop spending and have a real economy, not based on borrowing and spending.
Well, you can argue that the reason that we're so heavily in debt is because we're not collecting tax revenues at the levels we could or should be. So I guess if I were in your, I'm not in your district, but if I were in your district, what I would say as opposed to, the sky is falling thing, right? Like, why are we not trying to get more states earning so that more states are paying in to the tax system?
Chairman Powell says that we will do whatever Congress wants us to do, but don't tell us what we should do in terms of financial operations. So that was a quote from him recently. He said, we don't ask for financial advice and we don't give spending advice. So the way that the Federal Reserve is acting is so childish when Chairman Powell says things like that we will do whatever Congress tells us to do. We don't care who's in charge. We will print if you tell us to print. That type of attitude is not a good leader. That's not a good steward of money. So Chairman Powell's agnostic as to how we spend and waste our money. As a congressperson, I don't believe in necessarily destroying the machine and taking the oil out of the engine. I think we have to be way more efficient in terms of how we're deploying and where the money's flowing. My suggestion is we cut Medicare, Medicaid by $1.8 trillion a year and the National Defense Authorization Act by $200 billion. That's $2 trillion. That brings us back to where we are not borrowing. We would only have to borrow $1 trillion a year, because we would be taking in $5 trillion a year in taxes, but still paying $1 trillion a year on the debt, $37 trillion. We'd still have to borrow the trillion just to pay that. So we're in a big financial crisis here, and I thank you, Alan, for letting me speak so much, because I think most of you probably do agree that we are in a financial crisis, and we should come up with efficiencies, consolidation, as if we were in a bankruptcy trying to run a business. That's my suggestion.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
John, this is Elle. How many Americans would that push off of Medicare?
Well, basically, the corporations would go out of business, but the American population would still get $1.2 trillion in funding for whatever is left of the medical industrial complex.
No, my question was, if you were to reduce funds for Medicare by the amount you just said, how many human beings would lose their Medicare?
I obviously don't have an exact number for you. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I think everybody would get a lower quality of care and less care, but that's what $1.2 trillion, that's all that's left. You have to spend what's based on the budget. We need a budget balanced act. We can't keep borrowing and spending. We as a population have to come to terms with the fact that we've been in a 25-year war with a pandemic, scandemic that has looted our treasury by $37 trillion. Are we going to keep kicking the can down the road and pretend it's not a Ponzi scheme? It's a Ponzi scheme at this point.
John, are you implying that the pandemic was not real?
I believe it to be a pandemic, scandemic. It's come out that Fauci funded the operations to build the COVID-19 virus in the Wuhan lab. I think the Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, Bill Gates' response to mass vaccination is a tragedy, and it cost us $5 trillion of funding. The First Act, the HEROES Act, the CARES Act, it's all one giant scam to get big pharma money. If we reduce Medicare, Medicaid by $1.8 trillion a year, and the NDAA for Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and we take $200 billion out of their pockets, we will kill two birds with one stone. Those two birds are the greatest enemy of this republic, which is big pharma and the big military-industrial complex. Elle, I would ask you, do you want to keep funding the military-industrial complex? Do you want to keep funding big pharma?
I would like to reduce the budget for the military. I would absolutely not want to take a penny away from Medicare. But just to be clear, are you saying that you are a COVID denier? Is that what you're saying?
I'm a COVID-19 vaccine denier, not a COVID-19 denier, a COVID-19 vaccine denier.
Got it.
I don't know what the name of everything is.
I'm saying that if you go to Died Suddenly on X and you look at all the tragedies of young people and military personnel that have long COVID or have clot shots, the spike proteins are not vitamin boosters. They're not good for your health. In my opinion, Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates should be arrested for crimes against humanity.
Can I say this? Hold it, just a second, Scott. Why don't you? Oh, I think you just always say. Go ahead. Just tell us what you're going to 1% of your next 5 years gets you $4.7 trillion. That's a half a Okay. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I think we could cut the entire military budget, right? The entire thing. And we still have a deficit problem, right? I do think the congressman brings up something interesting and where Elle says, I tend to be sympathetic about not wanting to cut Medicare or Medicaid, but I don't know how do we get to a sense where we're not in fiscal crisis. Now, most people say if we even just get to where our deficits were 40 to 60% of GDP, I mean, we'd be in the right direction. But I don't know what we cut. Or do we do? I mean, I think that basically, I don't know what Elle you're in favor of cutting, but I think I think most people's approach to the deficit is that we'll put our head in the sand until everything collapses, and we just won't talk about it. I mean, Simpson Bowles, we had that, in the Obama administration. That was just put in the drawer. I mean, I don't know. I think the congressman elect has a congressman candidate, Kitover. He's extreme on this stuff, but I don't hear many people in their criticism
What up with that?
with a rational alternative or any alternative. I think that it's just hey,
What's wrong with that?
Also, I think
that's a real one. That's a real one. That's a real one.
All across the board, I'll give you what your views on language, what the budget is, what department. You have to cut your expenses 5% every year for the next 5 years. We have a balanced budget. Light the economy on fire.
Well,
I
clearly,
was going to say was the two, if you just give me a second, John. The area in the United States where we spend the most money is on Medicare, Social Security, and disability insurance. Disability insurance makes up the largest share of that, and that's about $3 trillion a year. And so then you then have the interest on the debt, which comes in about $1 trillion, and then you have the military budget that comes in about $900 billion, and then you have everything else we spend money on. So the quickest drivers of our debt and deficit happen to be mandatory spending programs. I'm not saying you get rid of them. I'm just saying we should all be clear on what the largest driver of debt is.
Thank you. Hanson, I'd love to know what you think about this.
Well, I just popped into the room. How long have you guys been, how long has the room been open? Are we just getting started or are you winding down?
No, we're just getting started, actually. This one does not have a time limit. I am very grateful that the prospective congressman, who is not even yet on the ballot, and is aspirational, is willing to come and express his positions. Whether I agree with him is not the point. The point is we are having a civil discussion, and I'm excited about that. Go ahead, Hanson.
Yeah, I've just recently met John, and we've exchanged some views over in the rational discussion room. Some cases I disagree with him, but that's beside the point. He can engage. He's got some highly controversial views, some of which I disagree with, but he presents them in a reasonably rational way, and they can be discussed. But be that as it may, I was just going to make this really simple contribution that when I thought your room on wealth, consumption, and income was a superb room as a topic, which one to tax and how much in each area. Obviously, we didn't reach any consensus, but I thought it was a good discussion. But then I sent you a text afterwards that I just made the observation, assume that our budget is $1 trillion, deficit is $1 trillion a year, just $1 trillion, which is higher than that. Solution, cut $500 billion in spending and increase taxes $500 billion in each year in order to eliminate that deficit. We can't even agree on where to cut spending by a couple of $1 billion or raise taxes by an equal amount, much less what is rationally required. And I'm not an economist, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I know that if my deficit was $1,000 a month, I'd either have to go work at Walmart to earn $500 a month and then cut another $500 a month in my spending in order to balance my budget. And until somebody can explain a path forward to that kind of a resolution in understandable terms to little old me that doesn't know much about economics, then I'm going to be skeptical and I'm going to be very, very concerned.
Anson, thank you, and I did see that message, and I think we'll get there. Next on Tuesday we're going to talk about what we could live without, and I think that's an important discussion. But Congressman, or theoretically, I don't like to call you. I'm going to call you Mr. Kitover. Is that fair?
You can just call me Candidate John.
All right, Candidate John. That's fair. I think that's a fair representation. Thank you. All right, Candidate John. I believe it is my understanding that we are making payments on the federal deficit as a part of the budget that is adopted every year. Do you accept that notion?
Yes.
Okay. So, if we were to balance the budget, we would eventually pay off the federal deficit. Do you accept that notion?
Theoretically, yes.
Good.
Wait a minute. If you balance the budget, you don't eliminate the debt. You eliminate the deficit spending for that year.
That's true, Anson, but the point I'm trying to make is, you're right, okay? The point I'm trying to make
we will never eliminate the debt, right? That's
Okay, wait, Scott, wait.
That's a fictitious number. We're just never going to eliminate that.
Well, yeah, but I think the theory here is important. What I'm trying to get at, and that I want Anson to understand, is that the federal deficit is being paid off as a function of the budget every year or every month. We are making payments on the federal deficit. It's not like it's continuing to accumulate because we're not paying it off. It's continuing to accumulate because we're out of balance. If we balance the budget, the deficit would eventually be paid off. And I think I think Candidate John even agrees with that.
If we were to collect $6 trillion a year in taxes and stop borrowing, we could start paying off the $37 trillion. But that doesn't even include the $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. You can go to usdebtclock.org. I mean, the true number is really about $140 trillion in debt. So maybe that is the reality, and we have to figure out how to optimize and make it more efficient, because maybe that is the real reality, and we're never going to actually reverse the tide. So I'm just saying that I don't really know the absolute optimization. I don't think anybody does, because so much of this is based on, theoreticals. But I do think the status quo probably will remain the status quo, because Congress and all these corrupt Congress people and senators are more than willing to keep borrowing year after year after year, and we all know it's true. So if there's only 5 people in Congress who are obsessive compulsive about the debt and the spending and the borrowing, that's only 5 people. So I am one of those people, though, who am willing to essentially make this my number one priority. And that's what I'm running this campaign on, because Darren LaHood's been in office 10 years in the 16th District of Illinois, and he's responsible for $20 trillion in debt over 10 years. It's $2 trillion a year in debt creation. So I'm speaking up against it, and I think that we have to look at this as basically a business bankruptcy, and the government should start running itself like Saudi Arabia or Norway, that have multi-trillion-dollar sovereign wealth funds. We've got a $37 trillion debt fund, and there's no sovereign wealth fund here. So I say reverse the tide, start running it like a business, and be adults, not children, borrowing and spending like heroin addicts addicted to debt.
Candidate John, go ahead, Joe.
And then I want to say something to something Anson said. So, because you still haven't, at least for me, you still haven't answered what would we do if, with this whole new monetary system, with the money that's out in the system, right? So it's not coming together because, yeah, we're like heavily into debt, not talking about the deficit, but just the debt, right? But we wouldn't be this heavily into debt if it weren't for the deficit, right? So, like, to not understand that this is like a symbiotic like relationship kind of thing with regards to monetary policy, it's not making sense to me, right? And so, um, Anson, if you don't mind, right? So, in your example, the Walmart example, right? So, to me, a simpler example is, I have a mortgage. My mortgage is, I'm just going to use any number. My mortgage is $1,000 a month, but I know that I only make $900 a month in income, right? So, do I sell my place and then look for a property where my mortgage payment is $800 a month there, and then I have a little $100 thing for here and there, or do I try to go out and generate more income, right? So it's we have this deficit because we're spending more than we collect in tax revenues. That's just the simple definition of our deficit.
Daryl, we're 37 trillion in debt. The Federal Reserve isn't working. Congress isn't working. You just want the status quo. That's all you're saying.
No, I don't want the status quo. No, I don't. But you said let's run the country like a business, right? And so if we look at it, and people in this room have heard me say this over and over, if this were a business and we had 50 individual departments, and 30 of those departments were not generating revenue, we would go into each and every one of these departments and we would either fire the people who are running these departments, or we would take them over and try to figure it out. I guess what I don't understand is in all of these conversations, why does no one, for the most part, I don't want to speak in absolutes, why does no one talk about how to get the majority of states earning or generating more income so that more people in these states are paying taxes? There are basically somewhere like 9 to 13 states, and that includes yours, Congressman, or future Congressman. Illinois sends more into the federal system than it takes out. Why are we not trying to figure out how to get the United States as a whole company with 50 individual departments profitable? Why is this country being economically held up by two handfuls of states?
Well, I can show you the HR acts that are the top biggest expenditures over the past 10 years. That's one place to start, because Congress is the actual body creating all this debt through never-ending HR acts. All that, and then you can see the corporations that are aligned with all those acts. So if you do a cross comparison between open secrets and HR acts and Congressman Darren LaHood, you will see how each individual Congress member is playing their little role in basically running a skimming operation. $37 trillion in debt, or $20 trillion over 10 years. Darren LaHood, the guy I'm running against, has over $12 million in his congressional campaign account, all given to him by big health insurance, big pharma, manufacturers, military industrial. So this is the game. This is the game that Congress is playing, and I am merely a disruptor like Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, Ron Paul, who are declaring that your government is bankrupt. The American government is bankrupt, but we keep kicking the can down the road and playing a Ponzi game. That's really what it is.
Yeah, but you didn't answer my question as to why are we not as a country working to figure out to get more states generating revenue in their state so that there are more people in these states paying more taxes.
Well, that's like having a business conversation about how to run a business.
Okay, let's change the subject for a second, because I think we may be getting a little abstract here. I do want to come back to this candidate, John. I want to know what you think of January 6th.
Well, when Ashley Babbitt poked her head through that window and that cowardly cop pulled his pistol and blew her head off, I was a little upset to see a cop who could have helped somebody get through a window safely. Instead, he decided to blow her head off. So I think there's a lot of fake news, a lot of misinformation. I think Nancy Pelosi, and while she filmed her little documentary, I think there's a lot of people involved. I've watched a lot of podcasts about corrupt Capitol Police officers, cover-ups, all types of disinformation campaigns, FBI employees posing as protesters, being walked into the Capitol. So I'm telling you that there's good and bad in January 6th, but I believe that the now is all important and that the now is a compression of the past and the future. And if we want to change the future, we have to now be fiscally conservative and fiscally prudent. That means
No,
tightening up our belts.
stop. You don't believe in the rule of law. You just said one citizen was killed, 5 cops were killed, and we have the federal. Excuse me. Okay, all right. So we don't have people who believe that the rule of law should apply. It's okay for the president to force his way into office with an illegal riot in the Capitol. That's what I heard. Now maybe I heard it wrong, but you're claiming information that is not the same information I have.
Well, then I think we'll just have to agree to disagree on January 6th. I think my narrative is different from your narrative, and I think that's actually how reality is. Everyone has their little solipsistic point of view. Some people are Ponzi schemers and can kickers and just can't stop borrowing money. I'm not that kind of guy. I live my life fiscally prudent. I am basically saying that the way that we live our individual lives should be a mirror of the way the government is living its fiscal life.
Okay. Does the president, as the leader of the country, have an obligation to show us his tax return?
Yeah, I think he does have a responsibility to show us his tax return.
Well, you know what? I wish you would go out there and say that, because most people who are in your cult, and I think the Republican Party, with a few exceptions, is a cult, have let him get by with murder. I can agree to disagree with you on January 6th, but I'm glad we found something we can agree on relative to his tax return. I feel like a
Can I
fool.
say something about like this? You know, this Ashley Babbitt thing, right? Like Ashley Babbitt was told by an authorized guy to not break that window and not come through it. Ashley Babbitt and the cowardly men behind her, because they let this woman go through this window first. Ashley Babbitt smashed that window and was then told, don't come any further, right? Because these men have the duty to protect Congress. Ashley Babbitt came through the window anyway, and she met her fate. Like, you're saying he should have helped her through the window. I'm saying her fucking husband should have told her to not go through that window.
Well, listen, I don't want to talk about a poor dead woman. Let's just leave it as a tragedy and agree that it's a tragedy.
Can I get, yeah, great. Let's stop debating with John. I want to push back a little bit on Scott.
Debate with me,
Say
Hanson.
it a couple of times, Scott, and I gave you a thumbs down when I heard you say it in here today. The debt, in my view, the 37 trillion, is not fictional. It's not ephemeral. And yes, Scott, someday it will.
I mean, I may hyperbolic there. I mean, of course it's a number.
I know,
It's a number. It is. I don't deny it's a number, but it's something that will never be paid off.
It's an important number, in my view. And I would suggest.
It's not. But it's not. But go ahead.
Okay, all right, but just give me just a chance, because I'm going to quote a book that I've quoted before, Changing World History, by somebody named Davidal or something. And national debts, indebtedness, excessive indebtedness, have been the primary cause for the decline and eventual left in the dustbin of history many empires over the course of, well, at least least since the birth of Christ, if not before then. And those national debts eventually are paid for or eliminated through default. The nation continues to accumulate debt. The debt burden becomes so onerous that they impoverish themselves deeper and deeper into debt as a nation, and it takes decades, maybe centuries, for that to happen. But they eventually default on that debt and therefore eliminate the debt. And when they do so, they are generally left in the dustbin of history. And that's been a historical track for millennia. And so I believe it's
Business model.
I think it is valid. Not that it's going to happen tomorrow, but it could. God forbid. I still think my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, are going to be a hell of a lot worse economic shape than I am today because of our continued accumulation of excessive debt nationally, and at some point we're going to become more indefensible. We will not be able to afford to stand tall if China invades Taiwan or Russia takes over Ukraine, and we will lack the ability. The moral demand will be there, but we will just simply lack the economic ability to sustain a society that everybody hopes that we can sustain, because we just don't have the money to do it.
Look, I would say that I do think deficits are a problem. They are an issue, right? I think the national debt is not the issue, right? Because we're not going to pay down the $37 trillion. We're just not going to do that, right? That's just not going to happen. I bet all the money in my pocket versus all the money in your pocket, that will never.
We will someday by default, Scott.
What is a real? No, we're not going to default either, because it would be too costly to the world's economy. And most modern monetary theorists will say that responsible deficits aren't a problem if you meet several criteria, including if you print your own currency and if your currency is an international currency, right? If it's a currency like the dollar. Now, what is a problem is excessive deficits, and I think debt is not the problem; deficits are the problem, right? And so there's a healthier percentage of deficits annually to GDP, and if you can get in that range, that's what I would focus on. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Anson, I think Scott makes a really good point here, that the problem is the deficits, deficit spending and the federal deficit are three different things, but a balanced budget or a reasonably balanced budget would really begin to deal with this problem. And I think there are a lot of
even if the deficits just weren't massive, like if they were a certain responsible correlation to GDP, then what would happen is our dollar would be fine, interest rates would be fine, it would curb inflation, and we could keep accumulating debt, and it would not hurt anything. It would not.
I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Oh, just to support what you've said, Alan and Scott, but to add in one additional vector to a very clear picture that they're trying to paint, as if there's no other way to raise money to pay off the debt. For example, what about going back and looking at tax rates and all the corporate welfare and saying, oh my God, we went a little too far. We're going to collect 3% from every billion and up company, and by the way, that'll cover it, or something like that. Now, that's one. Like the corporate, I don't like to use the word rape in a frivolous way, but I do think it's apt here. But look back and get money. Also, you could tax the lower paid workers a lot less as a percent of their wealth, which they don't have, and income. It's gross. That's what I wanted to bring in. Labor issue and corporate, legal cheating.
Well, Jane, there's another way you can raise revenue, which is what this administration has chosen to do, which is a consumption tax on the average American. So that's what the tariffs are going to be, right?
Also effective, yes, right.
They're going to put, when they're talking about, so funny, this administration talks about the money that's going to come into the Treasury and is coming into the Treasury. as if these countries are paying it, right? As
From
if,
us.
on the tax line. As if China and Mexico, like, as if a boat of money pulls up into a harbor, and all right, we want to send our goods in. No, that's not what happens. It's the importer pays the tariff, the company that imports the stuff, and then that's passed on to the consumer. So basically, it's so interesting. If Trump had come out and said, "Oh, and this is for you, Anson. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make it so much revenue. Okay, it's fantastic to the coffers. Okay, we're gonna tax people. We're gonna tax like middle class people in Queens. Okay, beautiful. They love me in Queens. They call me the blue collar billionaire. Okay." And if he had said that we're going to tax working class people and working class families to cut down the deficit of that, people would freak out. But the tariffs are exactly that. It's just a tax on working class people. And I can't believe people aren't especially conservatives, aren't freaking out.
Yeah, I'd love to know that. Candidate John, do you agree that tariffs are a sales tax?
I think tariffs can be used as a strategic way to get U.S. corporations into foreign markets that they may not have access to based on reciprocity. And I think if the U.S. government is smart, they will, essentially do a meeting of the minds and negotiate with marketplaces and governments that don't give us access. And if we want to punitize, or punitively utilize import tariffs, well, what I'm saying is we have to run this like a business. And if it's not run like a business and we're giving away free money, that's not a business. That's presiding over a further bankruptcy. Again, run the government like a business and we will start fixing our economic problems in this country.
Yeah, I wanted to say something, Anson, in the examples that you gave, I think the one caveat is that none of these empires had their currency tied to the global reserve. And this is, I'm going to go back to the congressman or potential.
Yes, they did, according to the book, Gerald, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No,
and he says the loss of being able to, having reserve currency, which we will do someday if we keep this up, that is a dramatic change in the negative way, in a national stature. And we're headed in that direction, in my view. And if you want to hear, well, that's just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I think
it's a good point. And I would add to this another question for the candidate. Do you think it's helpful in terms of our position as the world's reserve currency to have our president promoting cryptocurrency?
I don't like cryptocurrency as an investment vehicle, but I think if Donald Trump is the president and he's promoting crypto, which I know his family is involved in some crypto deals, I just feel like people are taking advantage of the situation. However, you can't stop it, and I think $37 trillion in federal debt and 100 in unfunded liabilities is another example of runaway government, runaway Congress, runaway Senate, runaway Federal Reserve. Run it like a business. And you know what these cryptocurrency endeavors are probably doing? Maybe they're probably running it like a business. I'm just saying this government has to start running itself like a business. It can't just keep borrowing and spending and giving the money away.
With all due respect, and I really want to say before we go any further, I love the way this has stayed civil. This is really extraordinary on Clubhouse, and I thank everyone for engaging in that. And allowing that to happen, I am very appreciative. Now, candidate, with all due respect, if a business is running over the rights of people, but it's got a monopoly and it's in control of its particular market, is that okay with you?
No, I mean, I don't like monopolies. I think they should be busted and we should have more competition in the marketplace, because when there's more competition, you get a better quality product or service that emerges from the marketplace.
I want to go on record as saying I think the president's involvement in crypto is anti-American, and I really think it's cowardly of many Republicans for not standing up for that point. I also want to go on record as saying, Congressman.
And also, Alan, the people that were freaked out that Hunter Biden was running around with Burisma meetings and shit. I mean, this is not on steroids. This is unbelievable that people are not.
You're 100% right about that.
It is.
Like, if they're not concerned about Trump's crypto dealings, if they were concerned about Hunter Biden stuff, they're not
welcome to freedom, where people are allowed to engage in business, according to their will, and that is one of the true natures of business. So if his sons are going to start crypto endeavors overseas, and the Saudis or the Chinese are going to give him money, I don't know what to tell you, but this Bitcoin industry is highly unregulated, and there's a lot of fraud in the Bitcoin industry, as you've witnessed over the years.
Yeah, I think that's part of the point, but I think the other part of the point is cryptocurrency destabilizes the U.S. dollar,
No
right?
question.
And it's being done for, like, Trump in part is doing it for his own benefit, which is something leaders shouldn't do, right? Like, Grant got involved in a Ponzi scheme when he was president,
Well,
right?
the federal government is buying Bitcoin now.
Yes, I realize that. I'm saying I think buying Bitcoin violates, well, let me put this more explicitly. His family is getting wealthy through Bitcoin endeavors, which I believe violates the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. Now, that took years from his first administration, and it was dealt with during Joe Biden. So it was like, well, he's not president anymore, so we can't do anything about it. But like, it's certainly a violation of the Emoluments Clause.
Well, I'm not here to badmouth Trump. Darren LaHood, the gentleman I'm running against, has lots of photos with him and Trump and Speaker Johnson, and he's the one with $12 trillion in corporate donations. I'm the one with $500 in clubhouse contributions. So I'm the grassroots, candidate you're looking for. I put the link in the chat. The link is in my profile. I'm not trying to shamelessly plug my campaign here and waste your time, but I am speaking out against the national debt, against borrowing and spending, and I don't want to kick the can down the road. I want to join Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, Ron Paul, etc., and try to find American Congress people that want to vote no on HRX and stop the omnibus bills and stop adding trillions of dollars to our national debt.
Candidate, do you feel that you've been treated fairly here?
Yeah, 100%, and I thank you, Alan. You're a real gentleman.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I am thrilled with the way this discussion has gone. This was an accident. We probably shouldn't have made fun of your name. I really wasn't sure because I use a speech synthesizer whether it was K or T, and so I'll take the blame for that. We will no longer make fun of your name, and I also appreciate that you said you put your campaign stuff in the chat. I am not going to remove it. I think you've made a fair representation of your position, and I think American citizens, when candidates talk honestly, have a right to make a decision based on that. I don't agree with a lot of your positions, but I am excited about the fact that you will discuss them forthrightly in this context. I didn't have a time limit in mind, but I think there is always a danger when you have a party, and this is a very successful party, that it goes on too long and nobody wants to call it to a close. So I'm going to start moving this to a close, but I'm kind of interested maybe in trying to maintain this Sunday afternoon time. It seems to work for people, and it's not stepping on Gary's room, and people have time for it. So would people be in? Is there anyone who thinks doing this again next Sunday is a bad idea?
I think it's a good idea. Let's do it.
I think we will do this next Sunday. I thank both Yossi and Scott for their, and also Marshall for their outstanding help in making this happen. I thank the audience for being civil to one another. And on Tuesday night, we will talk about what we can live without. What things does the government do that we can live without? I do think in trying to slowly bring things to a close that I would be thrilled to see candidate John call for Donald Trump to release his tax returns, because I feel like a fool for paying my full share, and I don't believe he pays his full share. I also would like to give candidate John an opportunity to say the name Virginia Dufresne.
Well, Alan, I think if you are a leader and you do believe in transparency, as I do, I would release tax records, medical records, YouTube videos, Instagram posts. I'm all about transparency, and I think if you are a leader and you are transparent, it takes a big burden off of your shoulders, in terms of credibility. So I think your criticisms might be, unfounded, but it's still your opinion, and I respect your opinion, Alan.
Thank you. And Virginia Dufresne, you want to pass on that?
Sorry, Alan. I'm.
It's Dufresne. Alan, if we're
Dufresne,
talking
okay.
to him,
Virginia Dufresne, yes.
Yeah, Alan, I mean, I don't know if you're asking for my opinion on that lawsuit, but, I gotta tell you, I think there's been a lot of slander, defamation, libel, and warfare against Donald Trump, and I support Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump. My father loves Donald Trump. My sister voted Trump. I voted Trump. My dad voted Trump. We are Trump supporters. I support Trump, even though I may not support his fiscal policy in terms of how to run the economy.
Okay. Daryl, thank you for the correction on the name. What I take that to mean, Congressman, and I will leave your information in the chat, but I take that to mean that you don't care that 14-year-old girls were raped. And
I'm sorry, Alan. I just dispute that and cannot agree with what you're saying.
Well, you're not willing to say the name of a woman who committed suicide because she was raped, and she went to work for Trump and was allowed to be trafficked into Epstein's situation, and Mike Johnson and Donald Trump could do something about it, and they don't. So,
well, let me say something about Epstein and espionage. I think anybody who has come into contact with Epstein should be considered compromised in terms of an espionage perspective. However, in Donald Trump's case, I would say as the president, he gets special clearance for whatever there might be in the Epstein files. And if the truth ever comes out, I just hope that there's justice for the victims. And a lot of people want to do the TDS, point at Trump all day long, but you forget about the victims. And Thomas Massie has 9 of them at the footsteps of Congress telling about their stories. So if you want to shed light, look at Thomas Massie. He and Marjorie Taylor Greene are fighting to release the Epstein files. So unfortunately, you may not like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Thomas Massie, but they are the only Republicans trying to shed light on this important issue and get justice for these victims.
I agree that the victims need justice, but we have a president who provably, demonstratively raped 18 women, and we voted for him, who got convicted of 34 felonies, and we still voted for him, and that really, really bothers me. I am actually much more conservative than you may think I am, but I think we should stand for something, and if we can't stand up for our wives and our daughters, then I don't know what kind of a country we have. So, any closing thoughts before we begin to draw this to a close?
I'd like to throw out that, Congressman, you said president gets a pass, but he wasn't the president when a lot of these things had happened. So,
I live in the now, you live in the now. Are you going to go to the number one person in the entire government and say, sorry, we're going to have to dethrone you, depose you, you're under arrest? Are you going to do that? Are you going to break the chain of command?
That's one that's hyperbolic. And one thing has nothing to do with the other. I'm simply talking about your comment about giving someone a pass because of this, when what they did, they were not that yet. So, I understand how, people rationalize or want to rationalize things in their head, but that just doesn't make any logical sense.
Well, I can think about 100 people in the government or corporations who I think should be arrested. You want to arrest the President of the United States of America.
Okay. So again, you never heard me say that. What I did, and this is the thing, right? This is like this thing about people, you say one thing and people hear something completely different. What I said was, I was responding to your comment about him getting a pass because he's the president, when the things he did, he was not the president yet. I didn't say, I don't get, Alan, you're not going to like this. I don't care about Donald Trump's taxes. I really just don't care. We're never going to get them. So I just don't really care that much. I understand it's a hot point for many people, but let's move on from that. What I'm saying to you, Congressman, is that this is a fallacious kind of rationality when you say, I forgive this.
It's not fallacious. I live in the now. I'm running for Congress. I'm not living in a lawfare TDS derangement syndrome. I'm trying to liberate America and the people in the 16th district that are being conned by Darren LaHood for 10 years now.
TDS, that stands for Trump derangement syndrome, correct?
Correct.
go to my psychiatrist and say I have TDS, will that psychiatrist be able to acknowledge that it's a real syndrome?
No, I think he'll probably laugh and say you're falling to the word game.
And if I go to my insurance company and ask for reimbursement for treatment of TDS, what will they say?
They'll probably say it sounds like you got TDS.
Okay, we acknowledge that this is a
I'm making a joke. I mean, I understand your point.
Okay, you're making a joke, and yet the whole point of this room is that politics is a serious business. And you know, I think it's one thing to joke about something that we can all see as funny, but your use of TDS in this sense is trying to diminish my sense of unbalance when I have a president who raped 18 women, who was convicted of 34 felonies, and is providing terrible leadership. You want to say it's about the here and now. I'm concerned about the future and the precedents that we're setting, and the fact that we're normalizing the federal troops in our capital. We're normalizing the president bowing down to Vladimir Putin. We're normalizing women being raped and not calling it on what it should be called on by the Attorney General. We're normalizing the Attorney General taking over the Capitol and other states. Those are the things I'm worried about.
Well, Alan, let me just respond and try to de-escalate or depolarize the conversation because I think we're probably coming to the end. And I just want to say that, you know, your opinion is your opinion and you're entitled to it, as am I. However, I would just say that I want the government to be a mirror of myself. That means fiscal responsibility, health, vitality, love, wealth, all those things. I want our government to essentially stop borrowing and spending because it's irresponsible and childish. We need to live within our means and stop scamming ourselves and scheming and Ponzi scheming. So that's all I'm saying. And whatever your opinion is, I believe that there's a political element to it where in politics, all of this, these sex allegations and all this lawfare is dirty business, and that's politics. But it's all about who controls the purse strings, who's writing the check. And Trump is presiding over the big, beautiful bill. I'm running against Darren LaHood that supported the bill and was one of the chief architects of the big, beautiful bill. He also voted on the HEROES Act, the CARES Act. These are $4 trillion, $2 trillion at a time. They're printing it up with the Federal Reserve, BlackRock, Blackstone, etc. We have to stop this Ponzi scheme and stop borrowing and stop spending more than we collect. It's just common sense. And I got to tell you, you should read Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Because we're not running this business like a business. We're running it like a skim operation for the elite and for politically connected people. I'm here to try to put a stop to it.
Okay. I think this has been an incredible hour and a half, and I'm not sure what we'll call the room next week. We will not make fun of your name, but I think we will continue the discussion about whether politics is entertainment or is serious business, and we'll find some clever way to do that. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of it. Any closing words from anybody other than John, Scott, and I, or Yasi, do you have any closing words?
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Marshall. Okay. You want to close the room, Yasi? Thanks.
What'd you think, Jane? How did I do? How was my performance? How would you rate my performance on that? You know, it's like going into a roast room.
They're seeing what's happening on TikTok. They see what's happening, and the starvation of people. The last time I seen people starving like that, and like bags of boats, it was innocent women born.
Now, let me give you an example. Imagine war between Israel and Iran, right? It's a four-sided war with two armies, right? So this war gonna have some